So today we're going to be working on creating two different types of tables that work together. So we're working on first creating a frequency table, and then we are going to take our frequency table and we're going to use it to create a dot plot. So these are two things that you learned in 6th grade that you reviewed and got tons of practice with, but you haven't seen it since 6th grade, so we are going to jump back into it and have a small review. So using our problem here, we're going to create our frequency table first. So our frequency tables just tell us how often a certain kind of data appears in a data set. So this right here is our data set. So it's literally the set of the data that we're working with. So I'm going to read this for you. It says, a group of 6th graders investigated the statistical question. So a statistical question is a question that has multiple answers. It's not a yes or no question, and can be represented with data. So it says, how many hours per week do 6th graders spend playing a sport or an outdoor game? Here are the data students collected from a sample. So a sample is the number of people of 26 6th graders, showing the number of hours per week playing a sport or a game outdoors. So there's the data. To help organize the data, students summarized the data in a frequency table. And again, a frequency table is possible data values, and how often each value occurs. So we're first gonna, and this tells us what we're gonna name it. So first we're going to name our first column number of hours playing a sport / a game. I want this to fit. The second one is going to be the tally, so how many times something shows up, or like individual marks of how many times something shows up. And then the third one will be frequency. And our data goes from 1 through 12. So right now I am just setting up my table so that I can fill it out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my data, and I see that the first number is a 3. So to organize my thinking, I like to cross it out and then put the tally. So then the next number is a 2, and I'll put my tally there. And then I just do that from the beginning, and just so on and so on. So now I'm at 6. Then we end up with something that looks like this, where we have just gone through and we've tallied everything. So we've gone through all of our data, we've crossed everything out, and it's now represented with tally marks. So then my next step is to actually find the frequency. So how many tally marks are there? 3. And that's it. I just go through and I add them. So here I have 4. For 3 I have 5. For 2 I have 5. For 3 I have 7, and so on. So that is a completed frequency table. That is a completed frequency table. If you wanted to go a step further, you would find the total. You would add these all up, and then you would find the percents. That is another way to see a frequency table, and it is kind of what you guys saw for 6th grade math. Right now we're just going to focus on the whole numbers. Then we are going to move on to the next problems. We're still to work with our frequency table, so I want these side by side. You guys won't be able to see it perfectly, but I do want these side by side because I'm still working with this data from the frequency table. So 10 and 11 we already did. It's just completing our table. Number 12 says make a dot plot. Make a dot plot. So a dot plots are the ones that look like this, or they're representing data using literal dots. You don't have to use dots. You can do other different shapes. I like to tell my students last year they can do hearts, stars, smiley faces, whatever works for them. Just make sure that you are showing, it's easy to tell what it's representing. So I will first start with the line, and I'm going to use the same information from here. So I'm going to go from 0 to 12. And then always make sure you are labeling. So I'm just going to put number of hours to shorten this. And then you'll go through, and you're going to be tempted to go through and look at this data here and plot it that way. But because you've created a frequency table, you don't have to go by each individual number. You don't have to do all 26 numbers. You can just focus on what you already have here. So looking at my frequency table, I know that the number of people who spend 0 hours is 3. So instead of going to the number 3, I'm starting at 0 and I'm putting 3 dots. And I'll just move forward like that. So 1 hour, that's 4. 2 hours is 5. And you just keep going like that until you have a completed result. It is okay to have numbers that don't have anything above them, because there are no people who play 6 hours, and that is okay. So now we're done with our frequency table, and now we're going to use our dot plot to answer the rest of these questions. So it says, what number of hours describes the center of the data? So if we think back to our 5th and 6th grade brains, center means median / the middle. So median is the proper term, but what it is the middle. So the way that you find that on a dot plot is you, just like if it was numbers, you start to cross out. I like to start from the top of a number because in my head that's the most recent number, and you always go from the outside in. So just crossing out your dots. And remember, you go from one side to the other. This is the best way to find the center of the data. So here the center is 3. So that's when we would write out the center of the data is 3 hours. So it's the median. And then the second one says, how many of the 6th graders reported that they spend 8 or more hours a week playing a sport or a game? So 8 or more means that we are looking at anything that is greater than and equal to 8, because it's 8 or more. So now looking at our dot plot, here's 8 hours and I've got 1, 2. So only 2 students. Play 8 or more hours. All right, last question. It says the 6th graders wanted to answer the question, how many hours do 6th graders spend per week playing a sport or playing an outdoor game? Using the frequency table and the dot plot, how would you answer the 6th graders question? So I'm first gonna look at my frequency table. That's my cat scratching the life out of a box. Give him 1 second. Are you done? Yes? Great, thank you. So looking at our frequency table, first thing I want to look at is, well, where's the most of the data? What are the highest numbers? And so my eye immediately goes to 7 and then 5. And then looking at my dot plot, right here is where I'm seeing most of the data. And then this one. And that's actually the same here. So I'm not actually gonna ask you, or you're not actually going through and counting like where are the most. You can just kind of see it. So then this tells us that most 6th graders, because this is majority of the data, most 6th graders play 2 to 4 hours. That's how you analyze data from a dot plot, using a frequency table. If you're still here, hi, how are you? Welcome to my vlog. Yeah, wanna see my cat? There's my cat. There's my dog. She's sleeping. She's not very happy. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Haha. I miss you guys. This is ridiculous. Like, oh God. Oh, what am I doing? Turn off!